concept of freedom never existed. India had no concept of freedom. That is why in the revolt of 1857, when the British soldiers, who were Indians, rose against the British in Meerut, killed their officers, marched to Delhi to liberate Delhi from the British. What did they do?
You're talking about Sipai's revolt.
Sipai's revolt, called mutiny, which the British called mutiny.
Yeah.
When they liberated Delhi, what did they do? They made the Mughal emperor, who was still there, India was still Mughal empire in 1857, they made him revive the Mughal empire. So there was not one leader in India in 1857 who had vision for India, who had vision for freedom. How do we make sure throwing British is easy? But who will govern India? Should India go back to the Mughal empire, which is what the mutineers did, of re-establishing the Mughal empire? And that is why vast majority of Indians supported the British, because the real military power in 1857 was with the Marathas, not with the Mughals.
Achha.
But the Marathas were hated by the Hindus. There were 3 Anglo-Maratha wars. The last one was 1818. All 3 of the Maratha wars between the British and the Marathas, Hindus supported the British to crush the Marathas, because the Maratha kings were far more oppressive than the Mughals. So you had the Mughal empire, you had Sikh kingdoms. The Sikhs were very powerful. They were ruling Kashmir as well, up to Afghanistan. So many of the Sikh rulers were very powerful. They were ruling all of Pakistan and up to Afghanistan. So do we want to be ruled by these Sikhs? Do we want to be ruled by the Mughals? Do we want to be ruled by the Marathas? Do we want to be ruled with the British? British are evil. They are proud and arrogant and racist, but they're better. So when the mutiny or the revolt, which is a better word, was at its full swing, who were the leaders that were fighting against the British? It was Jhansi Ki Rani, Tatya Tope in Agra. These were Marathas who had come and colonized North India from UP. They were fighting against the British for their own kingdom. They had no vision of India. They were fighting against the British for their kingdom, and Hindus did not want the Marathas to rule over them. That's why the British won. We never told that in 1857, Brahmins and merchants organized prayer meetings throughout India, praying for the success of the British.
Is it?
The people who won Delhi back for the British were all Sikhs. Sikh soldiers. And this is very interesting or sad. Indian Maharajas, who were mostly Marathas, they were offering to Indian soldiers that we will give you 1,000 rupee pension. You fight for us against the British. The British were offering 10 rupees a month pension. Indian soldiers decided to join the British. Vast majority of the Indian soldiers.
Even the upper castes?
All castes.
All castes, okay.
So they said that you are offering us 1,000 rupees a month pension. When we come to you to get the pension, you will kill us. We don't trust you. The British are offering 10 rupees a month pension, but they'll keep their words.
Okay.
They may be terrible, they are terrible, but Indian soldiers trusted the British. They also hated the British because British were arrogant.
They thought they were better evil.
Yes, better of we have to choose 2 evils.
Yeah.
So that's why the British won in 1857, and India continued for another 90 years until 1947 under British, because there was not one single Indian leader in India who had a vision of India, who had a vision or understanding of freedom. What is freedom? How do we become free? How do we sustain freedom? These were the ideas that came from the Bible, and they were taught in Christian colleges and universities. Charles Trevelyan, who was a civil servant, he wrote a book. He was brother-in-law of Lord Macaulay. He wrote a book on the education of the people of India. In this book, in the very first page, he says that India will become free. We live so far away, it takes months to come here in ships. We can't keep India as a colony. How India becomes free is in our hands. India can become free through a revolution like the American Revolution, which is what 1857 mutiny was, a revolution. Or India can become free through a process of education where we train Indians to understand how to govern themselves with justice, with freedom, with liberty. So the whole purpose, like Guntur, where you live, was a very important center of Christian education. Why were these missionaries establishing these Christian colleges and the university movement. It was to train people, train Indians to govern themselves as free people.
So the idea of education began there, to liberate people.
Absolutely. Why would you educate your slaves? Because it's so much easier to keep your slaves.
Yes.
If you keep them illiterate, you can keep them
Exactly.
slaves.
Yes.
But are we going to keep Indians as our slaves and rule over them? Or are we going to lift up Indians to become our equals, and we trade with equals? We become friends with equals.
Nice.
So the reason the British were educating, the missionary movement was educating Indians so that Indians can govern themselves and be part of the British Commonwealth. Like even today, the Queen of England is Queen of Australia, Queen of Canada, because we're part of Commonwealth. So to lift people up, to before they can have political power, economic power, give them intellectual power, give them ideas. So this was the whole purpose of Christian education, to lift up Indians. Now that got sidetracked, and we can talk about it, that what went wrong with the Indian church, what went wrong with the Western church, and how do we change that, and we can talk about that. But